So I am curious, by a show of hands, who has heard of forage fish? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about why these small silver fishes are so vital to the Puget Sound food web and the significance of their relationship to our shorelines. About 715 miles of the Puget Sound shoreline is armored. That's about 29%. Shoreline armoring utilizes artificial infrastructure, such as bulkheads, riprap, and seawalls, to stabilize shorelines and prevent erosion. However, this infrastructure traps sediment that's normally deposited on beaches from the natural erosion of inland areas. The result of this is uncharacteristically rocky shorelines, lacking in proper sediment size, distribution, and composition. So how are forage fish involved in this? The species sand lance and surf smelt both reproduce by laying eggs within sediment on beaches during high tides. And this reproductive cycle depends on healthy and ecologically functioning shorelines. Forage fish rely on native overhanging vegetation, proper tidal elevation, and specific sediment sizes. And because of this, they are considered ecological health indicators. They can signal to us when our shorelines are dysfunctioning or when they lack attributes that are evidence of ecosystem health. Shoreline armoring presents issues for these species as the smaller sediment sizes they require for reproduction disappear. And previous research affirms that forage fish will search for natural and undisturbed shorelines that support their survival, signaling that they need restoration. Restoration aims to improve sediment cycles and ecological attributes by removal of armoring infrastructure and by restoring natural conditions. However, current understanding of how this actually impacts forage fish is lacking. And so to understand these issues further, I asked these research questions. How do habitat conditions, such as sediment size, change post-restoration and armoring removal at nearshore sites? And what are the forage fish spawning rates at these sites? I completed my capstone research with Vashon Nature Center. I was trained on Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife protocols to conduct armoring, snorkeling, and kayaking surveys with the goal of collecting data on ecological attributes across 3 different site types: armored, restored, and natural. I conducted microscope surveys analyzing sediment that was collected and preserved during forage fish spawning months, searching through the sediment to identify fish eggs by species and counting them and inputting them into a master data sheet. This master data sheet contains data from the resources shown on this slide that I combined, input, and organized, and it's a comprehensive collection of forage fish egg counts and beach characteristics from 2016 to 2023. And this graph is a culmination of that data, with the y-axis being average eggs found, and the x-axis being a scale of 1 to 5 that represents increasing sediment diameter size and changing ratios in sediment composition, with pure sand decreasing as large gravel increases. And you can see for both species, they have higher spawning rates on the lower end of the scale, in smaller sediment sizes with a high composition of pure sand. Both species did spawn outside of their preferences in areas where sandy bases can remain underneath larger gravel. This graph shows the most common sediment size found at each type of site. And you can see armored sites commonly have large sediment with a high composition of cobble, while restoration and natural sites are generally made up of high volumes of pure sand. So my results confirm forage fish require shorelines with sediment size and composition in line with their preferences, which is less common on armored sites. And while these fish did spawn on armored sites, as the infrastructure continues to degrade smaller sediment sizes, forage fish will lose this spawning habitat. And protecting these species and their spawning habitat is vital. Forage fish is a title given to these species because they're prey to predators such as salmon, orcas, and harbor seals who rely on forage fish abundance for survival. Forage fish link the Puget Sound food web together by consuming phytoplankton and transferring that energy up to those predators. So if shoreline armoring continues to impact forage fish reproduction and survival, these vital prey species, their endangered predators, and the ecosystem will suffer. To prevent this, we need to continue research on how restoration impacts forage fish across the Puget Sound, as this has the potential to increase funding for restoration and removal of armoring infrastructure, as well as decrease the amount of new infrastructure that is installed. And collaborating, and we need folks like you for this, because collaborating across disciplines and integrating diverse community members into restoration and research will help us effectively respond to the signals that forage fish are sending. They need healthy shorelines, and they can't do it without us. I want to extend a huge thank you to my site supervisor, Bianca Perla, who is a huge inspiration to me, as well as Maria, Taylor, Lila, the high school interns I worked with at Vashon Nature Center, my faculty advisor, Jason Toft, who gave me pep talks, and my parents, my partner, my friends. Thank you so much. Any questions about forage fish? Yeah. Yeah, I was so hoping someone was going to ask that question. Thank you. So if you didn't hear the question, how do we protect our shorelines if we remove armoring infrastructure, right? Yes. Okay. So there's two methods of protecting shorelines. There's hard methods, which are these artificial methods we've talked about, and then there's soft methods. That's things like living shorelines, using anchored logs to stabilize shorelines. The way that I've seen this done on shoreline restoration projects is using root masses as well as logs and establishing them underneath substrate before it's delivered. Usually at restoration sites on shorelines, they deliver substrate, or you can put it under dirt, and that helps because they can bounce off the wave activity and it prevents erosion. There's other ways to do this too, like if we look at natural shorelines, they're doing that pretty well. If we establish vegetation, the roots will help fix that soil and it'll prevent erosion, and having healthy composition of substrate also helps prevent erosion. Because really the problem with armoring is that you're left with pure sand and all of that erodes away and then you just don't have anything. I'm sure we've all seen like a seawall or a bulkhead that just is water. There's no beach anymore. So those are some of the methods where we can still increase and maintain biodiversity, but also protect our shorelines, because that's a huge issue. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
They just did a seawall on one of the beaches.
Mhm.
And I was curious, do you know if they have done anything for like future, like you're saying, or do they keep that in mind now? Is this something that people are aware of and kind of restore? You know, I don't know.
Let me repeat the question back to you and then we can see. I think the question is, are people aware of the impacts of shoreline armoring and like cities specifically? I think, I hope so. I'm not sure. Definitely environmental organizations are aware of it and are communicating that. King County is definitely aware. There's I think it's called the Shore Friendly Program, which is a program to help private homeowners get consultations to remove their armoring infrastructure if they want to. We don't want to like tell anyone to make them feel unsafe. But I know King County is. I don't know about that one, unfortunately.
But I wanted to make sure that, and I would think that they would be aware.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
For sure. Yeah. I think sometimes the risk of human health, like an erosion and what that can potentially do to our cities, and that is also a factor. And soft armoring is not always the right solution for everyone. And that depends on, yeah, who's doing the project. So, yeah.